Well, hi and welcome back, and let's continue on our discussion of Chapter 4 for ADMG 474. And we are going to continue talking about chartering projects. From the reading from last week, let's pick up where we left off. Here are some things that you want to know. We want to know about risks, assumptions, and constraints. Now, risks are any event that can occur on our project that causes maybe some discomfort, or risks can also be good things, but typically we don't think of risks in that way. So they're basically these uncertain events that can happen that can throw our project a little wonky. We want to know who owns the risk, and we want to have an idea about how we will respond. Now, remember, in the project charter phase, we are very early on in our project planning, so we don't have a lot of information to go on. So we want to identify as many possible risks at a very high level, and we want to come up with some ideas about how we might respond. Again, high level, because we don't have a lot of information yet to go on. Assumptions are those things that we think will be true as we execute through our project. So, for example, one great assumption is always that as we put together our project schedule and we assign resources to different tasks, we assume those resources will be available when we need them. That's an assumption. We assume that all of our resources will be available when we need them. Okay, that's an example of an assumption. That's just one assumption that might exist. Constraints are limiting factors. They are typically non-negotiable. Time can be a very limiting factor. For example, you may have a project that is a party, for example, and that party is going to happen on a specific date regardless of whether you are ready or not. That is not a negotiable constraint. So think in terms of what is constraining your particular project. Resources that would be needed. We estimate our human, equipment, services, suppliers. We estimate any resource that we might need for the project. And again, at the early onset of the project charter, we still don't know everything because our work is not clearly defined. So at this point, they're high level estimates. We want to know who our stakeholders are, and our stakeholders are any individual or groups of individuals. So think groups of people. You don't have to think of a name of a person as a stakeholder. Stakeholders can be groups of individuals that have an interest in our project as it executes, or who have an interest in the results of the project when we're finished with it. And we identify these people and we prioritize them. Additionally, in our project charter, we have things like our team operating principles, which identify how our team will function. We typically identify things such as meeting schedules, how we will communicate, and how we will resolve disputes and conflicts. Lessons learned. I have actually worked in an organization that required a project manager to go out and look at the lessons learned database, and the organization captured all lessons learned from all of the different projects, and you had to look at this lessons learned database and you had to demonstrate that you had gone out and reviewed possible lessons that other project managers running similar types of projects had encountered and what they learned, and then you needed to address how you would incorporate these lessons learned into your project. So part of the project charter is typically looking at lessons learned from previous similar projects. The bottom line here is that you don't keep repeating mistakes that other people have made and have figured out how to solve, figured out ways of getting around them. That's what lessons learned is all about, not repeating the same mistakes. And then signatures and commitments. In a project charter, it's incredibly important that the signatures exist, because what those signatures mean is that we have commitment from the project sponsor for funding. We have commitment typically for resourcing, for the resources that we need. And it really gives us our permission to move forward. Now, be sure you look at the project examples that are out there, because there's a lot of exhibits that provide a lot of excellent examples. So constructing a project charter, there are 6 basic steps to creating the milestone schedule. And part of the milestone schedule, it's very important to understand that projects are executed, and typically as we complete a certain amount of work, we may have a deliverable that comes from it, and that deliverable may be a milestone, and it gives us an opportunity to evaluate the status of our project. So we describe our current situation, and we describe our future state, right? So where are we now? Where do we want to be after the project is completed? What is the acceptance criteria that will be necessary along the way? What are these intermediary points between the current state and the end state? So we have a current state and we have a future state or end state. And then what are those points in between? How do we identify milestone points in between along the way that are measurable in such a way? What are the major activities that we need to get from point A to point B? These are your milestones, okay? And then depending on the size of the project, you may have 1 or 2 milestones. You may have many milestones along the way. You want to identify who your key stakeholders are for each milestone. It may be different. It may be the same person. And you also want to determine the expected completion dates for each milestone. Again, at the project charter, we're thinking big picture, 30,000 foot level. We're thinking about milestones rather than deep dive into activities, right? A milestone will have a lot of activities that need to be done in order to hit that completed point. All right, so think about it in that way. In your reading, you want to pay special attention to page 95, which give you instructions on how to put together the risk section. You want to pay special attention on 96, which give you instructions on how to put together the resource section of the project charter. 97 talks about your stakeholder list and your team operating principles. And then page 98 on how to do the lessons learned and the signatures. Now, for the purposes of this exercise, you can absolutely electronically sign your documents. I do not expect signatures, but electronic signatures are fine. And then for finally, if you have never laid hands on Microsoft Project, either 2013 or 2016, there are some activity instruction type things on page 99 through 104 that you should find helpful. Also, don't forget that you have some extra credit opportunities in the course that you might definitely want to take advantage of, because here's the thing, Microsoft Project is going to become a big focus probably, I think it's around week 6 or week 7 of 474, and then through 475. So if you don't know how to use Microsoft Project, you really want to take the time now to get comfortable and to get familiar with it. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 will give you more hands-on opportunities in the back of the chapter, but seriously, try those extra credit opportunities. They really do give you a great touch of a variety of different types of things, so that you've had your hands on a number of different things that you're going to need for this class. Okay, of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And you can Skype me anytime. Please don't let me know how I can help you and how I can answer any questions. All right, take care.